Black Ops 3 Zombies is the gift that keeps on giving, a game that has so much character and mystery, and almost 10 years later there's still so much more to be unpacked. These mysteries are things that I think OG Zombies fans deserve to see, and I think the timing is very fitting with all the Black Ops 2 DLC 5 alpha stuff coming out recently. This definitely hits that theme. Through my hunt for the impossible Easter egg, I've been led down a track that has revealed many more secrets. Now, I'm not going to deep dive into where all this information is coming from in this video, because I already blew the roof off everything in this video. If you want the full backstory, watch this video first. To summarize, essentially there has been a huge information dump regarding COD Zombies cut content that has actually been kept secret for years. Most people haven't even seen any of it. Today we're going to be focusing on revelations from Black Ops 3 Zombies, more specifically a cut version of the map's infamous outro cutscene. Now, for a quick trip down memory lane, I first need to show you this clip of Blundell himself talking about the Revelations outro cutscene, which will give this some better context and make this reveal even more satisfying.
Fascinating. It's interesting, like, because when I was hearing all the commentary on the way to Revelations, people were saying, "Well, listen, if they do anything less than a 30-minute cutscene at the end, I'll be disappointed."
I think if you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. There's no way to make a perfect ending. You can't please everyone.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think it was a perfect ending.
Of course you do.
Reed would tell you otherwise for hours.
When it comes to 30 minutes, they're saying, "Oh my God, you're gonna have to do so much," and I won't bore people with the realities of how long it takes to make in-game cinematics and all that fun stuff. But even if you wanted to say, okay, let's kind of commit that, that wasn't what we were going for at the end. When we talk about intro IGCs and so forth, we say 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes normally. When we got to the end, I actually asked our animation department for actually a shorter time on the outer IGC for Revelations than what they initially proposed. Because what we do is we start off with what's called an animatic, where you essentially block out a scene and represent the information.
Yep.
It was initially a lot longer, and I actually asked for it to be reduced to make it more succinct.
You just made a lot of kids super upset.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. If I'd gone longer, I think there would have been another kind of upset, which was I think there would have been more to distract you rather than what the Revelation ending does, which is every single line that's spoken in it and shot that's taken is meaningful. And I think if I put more shots and more scenes in, sorry, I'm wobbling with my elbows here. With my, I talk with my hands, if you're not know. I think if we put more shots in, I think it would be more confusing. I know people are looking at it and going, well, I'm still confused. I think in retrospect, I think each shot and each phrase will have poignant significance.
This clip holds quite a large significance in what I'm going to show you today. Blundell makes it clear that this cutscene in particular, being the DLC 4 finale, was very carefully crafted and that each voice line had great purpose, and moments that felt unnecessary were removed, which I guess comes at no surprise, as we know many things in Zombies are refined and cut before the final product. But what I have here to show you is an early production draft script for the outro IGC for Revelations. This contains all the scripted voice lines for the characters, but it also contains voice lines that did not make the final cut. Now, at first glance, everything about the script seems ordinary and no different to the one that we ended up seeing in game. But I was still so intrigued, so I read through the whole script, and to my complete shock, right at the end of the scripted cutscene, there was actually something new. Something that definitely isn't in the cutscene that we all know. Monty reads his normal line, "I suppose I could make a little corner somewhere in history, a place where I can dump some of the other shit that I have left over. Or I could just wipe you from existence." Actually, that all works out perfectly. The characters begin to fade from existence, and now this is where the cut dialogue begins. There is a moment of silence followed by the sound of bells tolling. We begin to hear another voice, the voice of a little girl. It began long ago, on the battlefields of the Great War. My name is Samantha, and I'm going to tell you where all this really began. This absolutely blew my mind on so many levels. For starters, this is obviously a direct parallel to what we hear in the intro cutscene for Origins, but with a nice little twist, because as we know, in the Origins intro, Samantha says this.
It began long ago, on the battlefields of the Great War. My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
Now, if you hadn't noticed already, what is so sick about this is that in Origins, Samantha says, "My name is Samantha and I'm going to tell you how all this really began." Which, within the narrative, explains how our multiverse begins and how at the end of Buried, Samantha reaches out to a new timeline in Dimension 63 to plead for the help of Primus. This how in her sentence illustrates to the audience essentially the beginning of Blundell's multiverse and the introduction of the 2.0 characters in Primus. But in this cut segment of dialogue from the Revelations cutscene, she says a similar variation of this voice line, except the word how is now swapped with where. If it did make the final cut like this, Sam's voice line this time round is not depicting the battlefield of the Great War in 1918 during World War I, but this time depicting the battlefields of the Great War in 1292 in the fight between humanity and the Apothecans. The where in her sentence this time describes how the Great War was truly where everything began in the Ether story in terms of the timeline. But because of the complexity of time travel and multiverses, it's not chronologically how everything actually began like in Origins. Distinguishing the how and the where in these voice lines is quite satisfying. Now, to try and imagine this, I believe it would have played out something like this.
You could send us somewhere else. Somewhere we've never been.
I suppose I could make a little corner somewhere in history. A place where I can dump some of the other shit that I've left over, or I just wipe you from existence. Ooh, hang on. Actually, that all works out perfectly.
It began long ago, on the battlefields of the Great War. My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
Now, as much as I love this, not just because it's a part of a lost COD Zombies history, and it's a very clever voice line, I can totally understand why it was cut, because in classic Blundell fashion, he knows that the audience doesn't need everything spelt out for them. We already knew all of this. We knew that Origins took place on the same grounds as the Great War. We knew where the story really began. I think this was left out because the element of mystery Blundell utilizes in his narrative so well in these Zombies games, and this just felt a little unnecessary, almost too on the nose. I think you could also argue that this line does put an even heavier emphasis on a Great War map on the horizon line, which, to be honest, was what I always thought was going to happen with Black Ops 4 Zombies. My prediction always was, after Revelations, that a Great War map would be the main map on BO4's launch, and the bonus map would be a Mob of the Dead remaster. Obviously, things turned out very differently. That is not to take away from this, because I still think this is very cool. It's so interesting to see voice lines like this that were cut out of the final product. And this is quite a poetic line that really wraps up the whole cycle so well. I know for the people that really love the Ether story like me, this is really quite special to see, as it's from a time in a universe that I feel people still have an appetite for. And this is just adding to the pile of massive amounts of cut content from COD Zombies. It's also just so intriguing to see what could have been. I'm sure people have a divided opinion on whether this should have been left in the game or not, and I'm curious to see your reaction. This is only the beginning. There is much more to uncover soon.